Yes, and in fact, Bitcoin did that recently when it dropped from 50,000 to 20,000. Let me show you guys this chart because it's a very cool chart as well. So here, let me remove my moving averages so we keep it as crisp and clean for everyone viewing. So you basically had Bitcoin making higher highs, so high, higher high, higher high, and higher high. And then you started to downtick here, and you can see this low is lower than this low. So that was a lower low. That was a change in character for Bitcoin. And then it rallied, and it was a lower high. So all of a sudden, you could see high and lower high, low, lower low, and that switched from this upsloping move. The next thing that was very concerning was a trend line that marked a head and shoulder neckline. I don't know if you're aware of what a head and shoulder is, but basically it's a pattern formation in the markets that's bearish when it breaks. And you can see shoulder, head, and shoulder. And here was your trend line, right? And then look at, as soon as you got below that trend line here, in 3 days, you went from a 50,000 break all the way down to the 30,000 low here on Bitcoin. And that's what I would say in terms of the equity markets, the S&P. If that line breaks, it could be a very quick, fast flush to the downside. And you could really see a big drop. So definitely be aware of that trend line and watch, like you mentioned, it's support. If it breaks, watch out.
Yeah. So if Bitcoin breaks below 30,000, we definitely headed towards. Cause I heard your prediction of 20,000. So I know Gareth is gonna come in buying up all the Bitcoins at that point, huh?
Well, yeah. So one of the predictions, yes, you're absolutely right. Eventually, I do think it's going towards 20,000. One of the things I've been saying ever since it made that low at 30,000 is that we could actually rise first close to 48 to 50,000, basically back to that support, that former support line. And for the viewers out there, support when it's broken now becomes resistance. So again, think of a door you just broke down. You just broke through that support level, that or resistance level, and now it gets built up the other way. It becomes strong in the other direction. So I do think you could see in the short term Bitcoin moving back up. My thesis for that is that the meme stocks are getting kind of overdone here, and I think you'll probably start to see money flow being pulled from the AMCs and the GameStops and rotating back into cryptocurrencies. And just going back to the meme stocks, another fascinating little tidbit is that when Bitcoin broke down here, that's when the meme stocks started to rip to the upside. And again, I think what you saw here is that the same investors that are in Dogecoin and Ether and Bitcoin, they're the same ones that are playing a lot of the meme stock momentum. And so money's rotating back and forth here, kind of like a pendulum. It swings one way and then it swings the other way. So if we do see the meme stock stall out and fall, my guess is Bitcoin has upside in the short term, but I still think you've got to flush people out to that 20,000 area before all is said and done.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I've actually been thinking about that. I was thinking, I was like, there's some type of rotation here with the meme stocks and then cryptos, and crypto's been getting kind of beat up. And so I've been, throwing money in there. I was like, I don't think it's over for the crypto bull market, So I expect that rotation to happen again.
Yeah. And I think you're dead on in that. And for a shorter term investment, I think a move up here in crypto is probably likely, where you could see an easy 20 to 30% in the crypto markets before the next dip. Obviously go small because ultimately it is going down. You just never know when. But I do think that will happen. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you mentioned the Shanghai Composite, and that was very intriguing to me because you did compare it to the Bitcoin chart before, and then and I've been investing in some Chinese stocks. I invest in JD, Neo. I mean, I felt like Neo kind of ran up way too fast. I mean, for it being an EV stock, but I feel like it still got potential. And then I'm also into the GOTU. And so you mentioned the Shanghai Composite. So that's kind of intriguing because I've noticed when market crashes, people do run to foreign equities, especially if it's just a crash specifically in U.S. stocks.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, if the U.S. markets were to decline really quickly, heavily, then the Chinese stocks very likely would see a little bit of weakness, but I think they would hold up better because obviously it's not directly influenced by the U.S. economy. But yeah, I think that's the coolest thing in the world. I still remember discovering that chart. And if I bring up, for instance, here, I'll show my screen again here. and we can go through some of these charts. But just the fact that the Shanghai Composite chart looks identical. So if I show here, let me find this chart here. Here's Bitcoin's chart, and you can see here, this is Bitcoin prior to the move where it went to 65,000. So this is how that chart looked prior to the 65,000 run where it broke out above 10,000 here and ran all the way up. And then if I bring up the Shanghai Composite chart, look at how it's almost identical in terms of its price action. And to me, that's something to kind of note. You wouldn't just rely on the identical charts to say, oh, well, this is going to go up, 3, 4, 500%. What you want to do is you want to look at the similarities of a Bitcoin versus the Shanghai. And for me, it's like, okay, well, Bitcoin's relatively new in terms of how long it's been around, since 2009, I think it was. And if you look at the Shanghai Composite, a lot of these stocks are relatively new as well. And it's an emerging market in terms of money flow. China still restricts a lot of investments in there. If you can kind of make a case where over the next decade, China may look to open things up a little bit. In fact, I just heard today that Biden canceled the banning of TikTok and some of these other things. So there seems to be a little bit of a warming of relations with China that also could be a benefit. And if you get any sort of kind of opening up of the Chinese economy, the Shanghai Composite stocks are just going to go to the moon. Yeah, so I think it's not something that I would say, okay, I'm in these stocks to pay off in 3 months or in 6 months, but they're investments that you could see the next trillion-dollar company come out of a company right now that you're investing in.
Yeah, definitely. And it's also like looking at the macro picture of just like where China is economically as well. And seeing like, okay, I mean, there's already talk about them potentially being the next superpower country and all this stuff. So it's definitely a good argument for owning some of those equities.
And remember, I mean, you look at like an Apple who has, the US market, and obviously they've expanded all over the world, but China has, 1.5 billion people. So in relation to the consuming public there, if they become more of a consumer society, the upside on some of these names is massive if they become dominant in their industry.